As you work with large documents, or perhaps even small documents that have a lot of formatting, you'll probably bump into the issue of how do I keep my formatting consistent from page to page and from the kind of thing that you're formatting as you go through. For example, you have a heading 1 and you want to use it several times. How do you do that and remember what all that you've put into it and keep that document looking just as professional as possible? Well, hi, I'm Terry, one of the consumer technology specialists for Mid-Continent Public Library. And one of your easiest solutions is to use word styles. So let's look at a document and see how we can use those styles to our advantage. As we look at our example for today, we'll see that it's not a very large document, but it does leave a lot of room for formatting. And looking at the top, we might decide to add in some title kinds of formatting. We have heading 1 and heading 2, and then we have some other kinds of emphasis and reference, and even as I look here, maybe a book title that needs to be formatted in some way. And so we're going to spend some time looking at styles. Now, the reason we use styles is that once we create the style and maybe even just use the default ones to begin with, we don't have to worry about what all the different elements are within that style. It just simply click on our text and then use that style to format the text. And it just makes things so much easier, so much faster, so much more consistent than trying to go in and scroll through a large document and find everything that you need to find and then remember what those settings were. So always styles can be a great help. Now, styles are on the Home tab on the ribbon, and they even have their own group. And generally what you see is just a few of the different styles that are the default styles. So I have two options here. As I look at the right hand side, I could go to this down button and it says row 1 of 6. So as I scroll through, I can see the different styles. Or if I come down to the bottom button that has the down arrow, but it also has that little horizontal line above it, when I rest my mouse on it, it says, no, this is a More button, and when I click the More button, then it shows me the entire gallery all at one time. Plus, I also have some other choices here that I can use. So as I look at these, then I can say, oh, here's a heading 1, here's a heading 2. And so then it's just, how do I apply these ready-made formatting options to my document? Let's start at the top of our document where we have a title. And I'm going to just simply select that text. And then title does appear, and as I rest my mouse on the word title, you can see that my document is already giving me a preview of how that's going to look. But I could also come down to the More button, click it, and then select title from this grouping as well. Either way, and then I just simply click on title, and now I have given my title a brand new format style. That is just so easy, isn't it? Well, let's come down to the next choice here, why you should use them. And again, I think that is really a subtitle. So if it happens to show up easily within that little tiny view, I could select subtitle, or I can come down and select it from using the More button. And either way, subtitle. Now this is sort of interesting because while it's still, I guess what we could say, sans serif, very plain font, the letters appear to be somewhat farther apart. Their spacing is a little different. And it's just sort of interesting how they decided that that would be the subtitle. But wow, was that easy to do. Well, now let's come down to say heading 1, and we'll select heading 1, and again I can go to the More button in the gallery and say heading 1. Now that works pretty well, But you know, I think I saw several heading 1s on down the page a little bit. So let's scroll down because I don't have to define each piece of text individually. So for example, I can select another heading 1, hold down my control key, and then select the other another heading 1, and then I can go to heading 1 in the styles and click, and both of them can be changed at the same time. So you could go through your document very quickly, find the kind of text that you want to reformat and style, and make several changes all at the same time. Well, let's scroll back up to the top, because while that was heading 1, we also have a heading 2. And notice, you know, heading 1 is in color. It's 16 point, very unique here. Let's select the heading 2 grouping here, and then let's go up to our styles grouping, the styles gallery. I'm going to click more, find heading 2, and we'll just do this first one by itself. Now it is also blue, but it's just a smaller font, 13. But I think I saw some more heading 2s down at the bottom here. Yes, I did. So let's select another heading 2, hold down the control key, select another heading 2, and as I keep my control key down, let's click on the more button, find heading 2, and click, and now we have heading 2 defined throughout the rest of the document. So you can see how that is so much easier than going in and making individual changes where I would need to change the font size, perhaps the font itself, and add color. So instead of 3 steps, I just click the button from the gallery that is correct. Well, let's see what we have here. Let's come down to some of these other choices because we have, for example, subtle emphasis. So let's click that, go to our gallery, and we have a subtle emphasis. Now that's sort of interesting. It looks like it's italicized, and perhaps the font color is not quite black. It might be a shade of gray. Then let's look at emphasis. Oh, and it's just kind of right here, so let's click it. And it seems that it's a darker font, but again, it's italicized. Intense emphasis. And we need to find our gallery to do that one. So let's go to intense emphasis. Now it's italicized, but it now is a different color. I don't think any of these are bold. It has more to do with the shading. Well, let's look at subtle reference then. And it has, again, kind of a dark gray kind of color to it, but it uses small caps as part of what it does. Intense reference then, when we go to it, oh, it's right here, we can click on it. Now it also uses small caps, but it uses color, blue in this case. Well, now that is pretty interesting, isn't it? And you can see that you can get relatively complex with great ease when you use styles. Well, let's scroll down just a tad because we also have, oh, Mark Twain. And with Mark Twain, let me make sure that I select just Mark Twain and not that comma. And again, I might decide that I want to emphasize Mark Twain a bit. Let's go to the gallery because we also have a strong style here. And it is, well, bold. And maybe that's all it does is just bold, but it might be a slightly different color as well. And then Tom Sawyer, here is our book title. And again, we can go to the gallery and find a book title and click it. And so it is italicized as kind of expected. And then it also looks like it's kind of bolded or it's a darker color. So very easy to go in and make the changes that we need to make to add the formatting that's just expected and somewhat professional as we go through. let's go back up to the top of our document here. And as we go back up to the top, let's say that we've decided that while this title style is okay, it's not quite what we wanted to do. So what I might do here is select the text, or maybe I don't even want to do that. Let's go up to the top and let's find that title style and right click where it is in the ribbon, in the gallery. And you can see that I have choices to update it to match selection, which we'll look at in just a bit, but we can also modify this title style. So let's click on modify, and right here, let's start at the top. You can see that we could change the name, so we could keep the original title style exactly the way it is, and we could call this title B or something, so that we know that this is slightly different and it's our modification of the default style. So let's in fact even do that. Now next it says the style is based on the normal style, and virtually every formatting style that you see in the gallery is based on normal, and we don't really have a reason to change that. Now below that we have the style for the following paragraph. So when you press enter after you've typed a title and you've applied this style, as you press enter, what is the next line in your document going to look like? For the most part, you don't want to change this to anything but just normal. But occasionally, depending on how you've created your styles and how they're going to be used, you might decide that you want to change normal to something else. But just keep in mind that whatever you choose, that is when you press enter, that's what the next line is going to look like by default. Below that then we have a toolbar, and this is one of the few places in a Microsoft product where you have a toolbar, but as I rest my mouse on those buttons, no tooltip. So you kind of need to know what those little icons mean so that when you make the change, you know what you're doing. But starting at the upper left within this formatting toolbar, you can see that I could change the font. Maybe I'll do that. And then I could change the font size. And we aren't going to get too crazy here, but I'm going to change it down. I think it's a little big at 28. Then I could make it bold, and notice that, let's say when I click bold, notice how it changes the preview here down below. I can make it italicized if I want to do that. I'm going to take that off. I could even make it underlined. Automatic has to do with the color, and so as I click that drop down, then I get the theme colors and the standard colors, or I could even create my own. I'm not so sure that my title actually needs color, so I'm going to leave it just sort of automatic. Below that then we can either left align, center, right align, or justify the text. And then I could also, to the right of that, make this, assuming that I have a line after it really, single spaced, perhaps a little bit wider, maybe a space and a half is what this is, to maybe even double spaced. Now I can also change the spacing between paragraphs, and then I can indent. So I don't think I really want to do any of that, but I think I've made all the changes that I want to make. Now, below the preview, I get kind of a summary of all of the different choices that make up this particular style. And then I can say, do I want to add this to the styles gallery as a permanent choice? Well, I could do that. I could also say, you know what, I want to make this change, but I only want to make the change for this document and not make it really kind of a permanent feature. Automatically update. If I have already formatted most of my document and I change a style, I can say, well, I just want, once I click OK here, I want anything that is defined with that style to automatically update. And then I can say, well, okay, I even want new documents to be based on this particular template, but no, I just want it only in this document. Then I also have down here in the lower left a format button. The format button gives me even more options besides what I see here in the toolbar. In the lower right, then I'm going to click OK, and you can see that I have now changed that formatting style. Let's go to the More button here, and you can see that Title B is now part of that gallery for this document only. Another way to change styles is to go to your document. So let's go to heading 1 and say that, maybe that heading 1 font is just not quite what I like. I'd like to change this style as well. So I'm going to select the first example of this particular style. And then what I'm going to do is just make changes sort of manually. So for example, heading 1, I think it should be bold, and maybe it should only be 14 point instead of 16. And I think I would like to make it a slightly different color, so I'm going to go to my font color, and instead of the sort of light blue, I'd like to make it just slightly darker. Now that I have made the changes that I wanted to make, I can come up to heading 1 in the ribbon and do a right click on it, and we can update heading 1 to match selection. So let me click on that. First of all, I can see my heading 1 that I created manually, but as I scroll down, look at that. Anything that was defined as heading 1 now also is 14 point, bold, and a darker blue. I've come back up to the top of our document because even though I've modified my title style, I think I would still like to make some more changes. And so there is another way that we can affect change with our styles, and that is just create our own from scratch. So let's go to the Styles group, click on the More button, and as I come down past all of those choices for the different styles, I can create my own. And with this one, I need to give it a name, so I'm just going to call this example style. If I can type example, title. Now the preview here is simply where I have clicked, and so it's showing the existing title style, but we'll click modify. Then starting at the top, we have this, of course, dialog box that we've seen before, but we want to be sure that the name is the same, example title. And the style is based on title. Well, that only makes sense. We started with title, then we were looking at title B, and now we've decided to click in that area and simply sort of modify it again for example title. But now this style for following paragraph. Well, if I type a title using example title style and I press enter, that's saying that the very next line is also going to be however I define that title, which at least right now is 24 points. I think that the line after my title should just be regular text. So I'm going to come over to the drop down and change that to normal. Yeah, that makes me feel a lot better. Now from here, as I look at the toolbar, Arial, let's go with something else. Let's go with Broadway. Now as I look at this preview, 24 point, I don't know, maybe it needs to be a little bit bigger. Oh, that spreads the letters out. I kind of like that. Now to the right of the font size, I have bold, italics, underline. I'm not much of a fan of underlining titles, or in this case, I think italics would be just a little too much. Let's turn off bold even. I kind of like it without the bold. And then to the right of that, where it says automatic, well, we're just going to choose a new color. Oh, I like that green. Now notice that besides the preview below the toolbar, below that I have kind of a summary of all of the changes that I'm making. So here it says the font is Broadway, 26 point, not bold. Here's the font color. It says, oh, this is kind of a default, but definitely show it in the Styles gallery. And it's based on title and title B, and that following the style we want to have normal. So as I make changes, watch down here as well, and it just simply is summarizing what I want to do. Well, in the second row of the toolbar, I have, center. I think that would be great because I really would like to center a title. And then I really am not so concerned about whether it's single spaced or double spaced or whether I have extra line between my paragraphs or it's indented. So I think that's all the changes that I want to make from the toolbar. But let's come down to the lower left to the format button, where again I can go to the font, and I have even more options that I might want to consider. So, here's my preview. If I make that bold, that looks a little better, doesn't it? Those thin lines aren't quite so thin. And let's make it, small caps. I kind of like that. So let's click OK on the font. Of course, again, I get a preview, but let's go back to format here. Because while paragraph is again kind of the line spacing and indents, I could add in tabs or I could add a border. But before I do that border, notice that there are also options for language and frame and adding numbering styles and adding shortcut keys and text effects. But let's go back to border, and I think I'd like to add a box, and just a solid line is fine. The color, I think I want to make it a dark green as well. 2 1/4 point, that might be too heavy, so I'll make it 1 1/2. And of course my preview is over at the right. Well, let's click OK. And now I've added in all of those choices as well. Coming down to the bottom, of course, we've already said, yes, we're going to add it to the Styles Gallery. It's only in this document. Now, if I had more than one place in my document where I had a title style, I would check this box and it would update all of the title styles all at the same time. And definitely I don't want to put this in any other new document. So we'll click OK. And now I have that title style as I've defined it. As we look at what we have learned today, we know that if we go to the Styles group in the Home tab in the ribbon and we click on the More button, we can see all of the default styles that are available to us. We can also create a style from scratch. But what is so nice is you have all of these different kinds of formatting options that help you create a document that has consistent formatting throughout. And even better, if you make a change to, say, heading 1, and you have heading 1s throughout your document, you make one change and then simply say, I want to update all of the rest of those heading 1s to match, so you don't have so much manual editing and fixing to do when you use styles. So styles can be a wonderful improvement for your document just in working on it and even sharing it with others, because then they can use those same styles to create a document that looks very finished and especially in a work environment, very professional. To learn even more, visit mymcpl.org/online learning, where you will find online resources that include Universal Class, LinkedIn Learning, and Learning Express Library. Be sure to join us each week as we present a variety of tech topics. Each week we premiere 3 new videos. You'll be able to find them at 1 o'clock on Wednesday and Friday or at 2 o'clock on Tuesday. You can find us on Facebook at MCPL 360, or if you prefer, be sure to subscribe to our MCPL MO channel on YouTube, where you'll be able to find our MCPL Consumer Technology Resources playlist.